Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to be looking at a really fantastic educational resource all about streamlining your technical workflows. It's called the Command Center, the Missing Semester. You can kind of think of this Explainer as the ultimate catch-up class for digital professionals who are just looking to completely optimize how they work. We're going to bridge that gap between just knowing how to code and knowing how to actually operate efficiently in a real technical environment. So get ready to upgrade your digital toolkit. Now, let's just pause for a second. Picture a completely relatable, if somewhat painful scenario. Have you ever sat at your desk just spending absolute hours manually renaming hundreds of files one by one? You know the drill. Click, rename, enter. Click, rename, enter. Or maybe you're a student or a junior developer, and you've just tried to combine your code with a teammate's, and your screen flashes those universally dreaded words, merge conflict. Suddenly, you're just frozen. You're stuck in what I call the tedium trap. It's that awful sinking feeling of wasting massive amounts of time on frustrating, highly manual tasks that feel like they should be simple, but instead, they literally just drain your entire day. Well, here is the syllabus for the class you probably never knew you needed. We'll start with the missing semester, then move into mastering the shell, explore the functional pipeline, cover version control basics, and finally wrap up with streamlining collaborative workflows. We're going to transform all that manual digital labor into streamlined professionalism. Starting off with Section 1, the missing semester. You see, formal computer science education is fantastic at teaching theory, but it often skips over the practical tools, the everyday skills you're expected to just magically pick up on your own. And this brilliantly illustrates the cost of not knowing those skills. Just look at the stark contrast. On one hand, we have the reality for a lot of people, manual file manipulation, dragging, dropping, and clicking your way through literal hours of tedious repetitive work. But on the other side, we have command line automation. This is where those exact same tasks are knocked out instantly with efficient shortcuts. It's honestly the difference between walking across the country and hopping on a supersonic jet. And these tools from the missing semester, they're what gets you on that jet. Which brings us right to Section 2, mastering the shell. All right, so this is where we leave the slow lane entirely behind. Let's demystify this whole thing. The command line interface, or the shell, is really just a powerful tool used to automate repetitive tasks and interact directly with your computer using text. That's really it. I mean, movies always portray it as this intimidating, scrolling green text used only by elite hackers in dark basements, right? But in reality, it's an incredibly accessible command center. Mastering the command line is all about eliminating that tedious manual file manipulation we just talked about. It lets you navigate incredibly complex systems super efficiently. You're literally just telling the computer exactly what to do without having to rely on all those clunky graphical menus. Let's move to Section 3, the functional pipeline, and see how this builds into our very own data factory floor. Because the shell isn't just about single commands, actually. It's about how those commands talk to each other. This is one of the absolute most powerful concepts in computing, the shell pipeline. Try to imagine a physical, automated assembly line in a factory. You start with Step 1, your raw input. Let's say it's a massive, messy text file. Then, that data flows right into Step 2, a command called grep, which acts as a filter, pulling out only the specific lines you actually care about. That filtered data immediately flows into Step 3, sort, which organizes it all alphabetically or numerically. Then it moves seamlessly into Step 4, unique, which quickly strips away any duplicates. And finally, Step 5, you get your perfectly polished output. In the time it takes you to literally blink, the shell pipeline filters, organizes, and cleans your data. Stuff that would take hours by hand is done in milliseconds. Okay, moving right along to Section 4, version control basics. Let's pivot from personal automation over to team collaboration. If the shell is your factory floor, version control is the ultimate time machine for navigating your project's history. Look, for anyone who has ever emailed a document named something like final_version7_actual_final, I promise.docx, you need a version control system. Specifically, a tool like Git. It's a system that tracks changes to files over time, preventing collaborative disasters, and keeping your project histories managed. So instead of saving a million different copies of a folder, Git remembers every single change, who made it and exactly when. It completely solves that dread of team collaboration issues, because you can always safely step back in time if something accidentally breaks. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how Git actually manages this time travel. It basically comes down to a few core fundamentals. First, it tracks your project history safely using things called commits. You can think of them as permanent snapshots of your progress. But the real magic? That's branching. Branching allows you to create an exact copy of your project in this totally isolated space where you can safely experiment without breaking the main project at all. And when your brilliant new experiment actually works, you just use merging to combine your work effortlessly back into the main project. No fear, no broken code. And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Streamlining Collaborative Workflows. This is where we bring the whole shebang together. When you combine the speed and automation of the shell with the safety and historical tracking of Git, you completely change how you operate. So the crucial point is this: mastering these often overlooked tools takes you from being a bogged-down worker to a highly streamlined professional. The sources really emphasize that these tools allow you to resolve collaborative conflicts with absolute ease. You weren't fighting the computer anymore, right? You were commanding it. You've officially passed the missing semester, and you are transforming those repetitive digital tasks into slick, reliable, professional processes. So I want to leave you with a question to really think about as you get back to your desk today. Are you ready to automate the tedious and finally master your workflow? Seriously, are you ready to stop doing things the hard way? The tools are sitting right there on your computer, literally waiting for you to fire them up. Dive into the shell, experiment with Git, and take back your time. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.